Hi, my name is Dr. Catarina Thomson from the University of Exeter, and I think one question that's important to address, given Trump's behavior yesterday at his press conference, is whether or not he's acting rationally. The first step to answer this question, I believe, is defining what do we mean by acting rationally. I think all too commonly we confound what acting rationally means to what acting reasonably means. All that we mean when we say that somebody's acting rationally is that he or she is increasing the likelihood of his or her preferred outcome being met. For political leaders, we can assume that what they prefer is to get into office and to remain in office once they're there. How you do this will depend on how broad or how narrow your support base is. If you're the leader of an autocratic nation, this support base is going to be narrower, but it's no less important. If you're a dictator and you lose the support of the military, for instance, not only will you lose your job, you'll probably lose your head, right? So for democratic leaders, since they have a broader electorate that needs to keep them into office, whose support they need to actually be in a leadership position, this usually translates into a motivation to provide public goods. This can be education, different kinds of health policies, good foreign policies, or at least good enough foreign policies, right? Because you have a broader support base. In the cases of autocratic leaders, since their support base is more narrow, there's an incentive to dole out private goods, right? Like diamonds or whatever the case indeed is. So going back to Trump, is Trump acting rationally? I think Trump is acutely aware of the fact that he has two key groups that helped him get into office, and he perceives he needs their support to stay into office. And the problem is he actually does not represent, he's not a natural representative for either of these groups. So on the one hand, you have the white, or mostly white, post-industrial class in the US, right? The so-called American Rust Belt. And on the other hand, you have certain groups of the conservative right. And since he isn't naturally associated to any of these groups, I think there's a certain perception that the signals he has to send to these groups need to be very strong, right? Often when he's accused of being anti-Semitic or of having anti-Semitic people in his cabinet, his fallback position usually is, but I have a Jewish son-in-law. He does not have that kind of claim to either the Rust Belt in America or these right-wing conservative groups, certain conservative groups, not all of them, I would like to add. So is he acting rationally? Well, in one sense, he is trying to maximize the likelihood of remaining in office by talking to this group, and this has been picked up by different, not only political scientists, but different journalists too, right? He was confronted last night on Newsweek. He was asked, why are you acting like if you're on the campaign trail, you're actually in office? Because typically what we find, especially in democratic leaders, that once they assume office, there's a natural reaction to try to represent as broad the population as general. I mean, whether or not you voted for a particular candidate, once he or she is in office, he represents all of us. And that is a point where Trump's behavior is diverging significantly from the norm. So on the one hand, yes, he's acting rationally, but we haven't really been able, it doesn't fit in well with what we've seen in the past. I think it's important to try to find the rationality behind his actions, because that is going to help us predict what his future actions are likely to be. It's been a very surprising 4 weeks. And I think part of that is because he's acting different to political leaders who have had this position in the past. But if we try to understand the rationality behind his actors, that might put us in a position where we won't anticipate all of his moves, but we'll be in a better position to at least anticipate what these moves might be able to look like.